If you told me a year ago I'd fall for a guy the first met at a laundromat, I would have laughed. Or at least rolled my eyes hard enough to sprain something. But life's weird like that. Quiet, boring nights can shift into something else entirely when you're not paying attention. It started with quarters. Literally, quarters. I was standing in front of the change machine at the 24-hour laundromat down the street from my apartment. It was just past 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. I looked like hell. Sweatpants, a hoodie with dried coffee stains, and hair that hadn't seen a brush in 2 days. I was halfway through a week of insomnia and a mountain of dirty laundry, and the change machine decided to eat my last $5 bill without spitting anything out. I smacked the side of it, muttered a few choice words under my breath, and stepped back, already pulling out my phone to Google the closest ATM. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "You need quarters?" I turned around and there he was. This guy in a gray t-shirt and black joggers, holding out a small roll of quarters like it was no big deal. I blinked. "What?" He smiled, kind of lopsided. "You hit that machine like it owes you money." Which, I guess it does. I probably stared a second too long before I took the quarters. "Thanks." "You sure?" He nodded. "Yeah, I always bring extras. That thing's a menace." I dropped the coins into my basket and mumbled a "thanks" again. He just shrugged and went back to loading his dryer like we hadn't just shared the most meaningful human contact I'd had all week. I thought that'd be it. Just a nice stranger at the laundromat, but 20 minutes later I caught him looking at me from the folding table, and this time, he smiled like we were in on the same joke. I smiled back, and that's how it started. His name was Elias. We didn't talk much that night, just a few more shared glances, a comment about how half the machine smelled like a gym bag, and a goodbye nod when I left. But something about him stuck in my head. The way he stood. Easy, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. The way he didn't force a conversation, didn't hit on me, just noticed, and offered help. The next week, I went to the laundromat on the same day, same time. He was there. This time, he spoke first. "Back again?" "Had to see if the quarter machine missed me," I said. He smirked. Bet it didn't. We sat across from each other on opposite folding tables, talking this time. Nothing big. Work stuff. The weather. The annoying couple in the corner arguing about who shrank whose hoodie. He was easy to talk to. His voice was low, steady, with that slight rasp that made everything he said feel closer, somehow. He was a barista, worked mornings at a coffee shop a few blocks away. I was a freelance designer, mostly living off cold brew and deadlines I never met on time. By the third week, we were folding each other's t-shirts, and by the fourth, I knew I was screwed. It wasn't just his face, though yeah, he was stupid good-looking in that quiet, understated way. More like the boy next door who'd help you move a couch and then ruin you with one unexpected smile. It was how he listened, really listened, and how I found myself looking forward to laundry night like it was the highlight of my week. It was maybe week 6 when something shifted. He showed up late. His hoodie was soaked through, rain dripping off his sleeves, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. "Jesus," I said, "you walk here?" "My dumbass forgot my umbrella," he said, dropping his bag by a washer. And of course, this was the one night I needed clean clothes. I handed him a towel from my basket without thinking. He looked at it, then at me. "You always bring towels to the laundromat?" I shrugged. "Emergency hoodie napkins." He laughed. "You're weird." Takes one to know one. That night, we sat on the hard plastic bench by the vending machine, drinking sodas and watching the dryer spin. Somewhere in the middle of that silence, he asked, "You always come here alone?" I nodded. "Yeah, laundry solo time." He gave me a look. "You make it sound like therapy." "Isn't it?" He didn't answer for a second. Then he said, "I used to come with my ex. We'd fold together, share headphones. It was nice." There was something raw in his voice, honest. Like he hadn't said that out loud in a long time. "What happened?" I asked. He glanced at the floor. He left, moved to Denver, said he needed a reset, didn't ask me to come. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. That sucks. Yeah, he said, but at least now I get the good dryers. We both laughed, but the tension lingered, low and quiet. Later, when he stood up to leave, he hesitated at the door. You coming next week? He asked. Yeah. Same time? Same time, he gave a small smile. Cool. And just like that, he was gone again. But this time, something felt different. I wasn't just showing up to do laundry anymore. I was showing up for him. Then next week, I shaved. Not just a quick once-over either. I actually lined my beard. Wore my nicer jeans. Sprayed cologne before heading to do laundry. Which was ridiculous, right? It's a laundromat. But I knew Elias would be there. And some part of me was starting to care more than I wanted to admit. He was already inside when I got there, sitting on the folding table with one leg swinging, sipping something from a takeaway cup, eyes on his phone. He looked up when I walked in and smiled. You clean up nice, he said. I smirked. I knew you'd be judging my detergent game. He laughed and hopped down. You want coffee? I brought an extra. He handed me the cup before I could answer. It was warm. Oat milk latte, lightly sweetened. Somehow exactly how I liked it. I guessed, he said, watching me take a sip. Did I guess right? Too right. You been stalking me? He raised an eyebrow. You wish. But his smile lingered longer than it needed to. We loaded our machines side by side. Talked more this time. He told me about a regular at the coffee shop who always flirted with him by leaving terrible poetry on napkins. I told him about a nightmare client who asked me to design a logo that smelled like success. At one point, I made him laugh so hard he had to sit down. That's when he asked, "Why haven't I seen you around before?" I shrugged. I work from home. I keep to myself. Kind of a hermit, I guess. He looked at me then, not like before. This time, it was longer, warmer. You don't seem like a hermit. Yeah? I asked. Yeah, you seem like someone who's waiting for something. That sentence hit harder than I expected. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just looked down and said maybe. After we switched our clothes to the dryers, he pulled out his phone. Want to play a game? What kind? Questions. No judgment, no skipping. I raised an eyebrow. All right. He went first. What's the last thing that made you cry? Easy, I said. A TikTok of a guy reuniting with his golden retriever after deployment. He laughed. Weak. Your turn. He hesitated. The last thing that made me cry? I nodded. My mom's voicemail, he said quietly. She left one a couple months ago. She still thinks I'm going to end up with a girl. That shifted something in the air. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Your turn, he said quickly, changing the subject. Biggest regret? Now that one was harder. I thought about it for a second too long, then said, letting someone go before I got the nerve to tell him how I felt. He gave me a long look. You ever tell him? No. You think he knew? I looked at Elias then, heart thudding in my chest. I don't know. He nodded slowly, didn't press. Okay. He said, my turn. Last one. You ever wanted to kiss someone but didn't? That stopped me. I couldn't answer, not out loud. But I looked at him, just looked. And he saw it. The dryers buzzed then, loud, jarring, but we didn't move. For a second, I thought maybe he'd close the space between us. Maybe he'd lean in, but he didn't. He stood up, rubbed his palms on his thighs, and said, I better grab my stuff. We folded side by side in silence, and I hated how loud everything suddenly felt. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the buzz of a fly by the door, the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. He packed up first, slinging his bag over his shoulder. Same time next week? He asked, casual like nothing had happened. I nodded. Yeah, He smiled, just barely, and walked out. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was restless or wired, because I kept replaying the moment right before the dryers buzzed. The way he looked at me, and how for 1 second, it felt like something was right there between us, hanging in the air, just waiting for someone to be brave enough to reach for it. I wasn't brave. Not yet. I couldn't stop thinking about him. All week he was there, in the back of my head, in every little moment. When I was brushing my teeth, when I was folding socks, when I was staring blankly at my Figma designs, trying to care about corner radiuses and button placements, he was just there, that half smile, the weight in his voice when he talked about his mom, the way he asked if I'd ever wanted to kiss someone and not followed through. It felt like something had opened between us, and neither of us had stepped through it. Friday night, I gave up pretending to be productive and walked to the coffee shop he worked at. It was nearly closing time. Low lights, indie playlist, the smell of espresso soaked into the walls. He was behind the counter, wiping down the machines. When he saw me, his eyes flicked up, but his hands didn't stop moving. "Hey," he said, casual. "Hey." We didn't say anything for a beat. Then he nodded toward the bar. "You want something? We're basically closed, but—" "I'm good," I said. "I just wanted to see you." His hand slowed. "I've been thinking about that last question," I added. "The one about kissing someone." He looked at me now. Really looked. "And?" he asked. I swallowed. "Yeah, there was someone." Elias set the rag down. "And you still want to?" he said. Voice quiet. I nodded. His eyes didn't leave mine. "Then do it." I stepped around the counter. We were standing face to face, inches apart, in a half-lit coffee shop that smelled like vanilla syrup and steamed milk. The air between us pulsed. "You sure?" I asked. "Yeah," he whispered. So I kissed him. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a movie moment. It was just real, warm, slow, careful. His lips were soft but sure. He leaned into it like he'd been holding back for weeks. And maybe he had. Maybe we both had. When we pulled apart, he didn't say anything right away. Just let out this slow breath, forehead resting lightly against mine. "I've wanted to do that since the night I told you about Denver," he murmured. "You should've. You should've too." We stood there in the quiet hum of the espresso machines, not touching now, but still impossibly close. Eventually, he said, "Want to come over?" I blinked. "To your place?" "Yeah," he said. "Not for anything. Just to hang out, off the linoleum for once." I smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." We walked back to his apartment. It was small, lived in, the kind of space you don't decorate for Instagram. Blankets draped over the couch, books stacked sideways on the floor, an empty ramen cup on the coffee table. I loved it immediately. He threw his keys in a bowl and kicked off his shoes. "You want water? Beer?" "Beer's good," I said, settling onto the couch. He handed me a bottle, then sat down next to me. Not close enough to touch, but not far either. We watched something dumb on Netflix, some dating show we barely paid attention to. The conversation picked up again, easy as ever. He told me about a time he accidentally locked himself out of the shop in nothing but his apron. I told him about a roommate in college who collected toe rings and had a shrine to Steve Buscemi. We laughed. A lot. But under it all, there was this current. This soft, humming awareness that things had shifted. At some point, I realized he'd leaned in closer. His knee brushed mine, and this time, neither of us moved. "I don't usually do this," he said suddenly. I turned to him. "What? Let strange men into your apartment?" he smirked. "No. I mean, I don't usually open up. Not like this." I didn't say anything, just nodded. He looked at me, something flickering behind his eyes. "Do you?" I shook my head. "Not really. It usually doesn't feel safe to." "But this does?" "Yeah," I said. "It does." He didn't answer, just leaned in and kissed me again. This time slower, less cautious, and when he pulled back, his voice was barely a whisper. "Stay?" That one word felt bigger than it should have. "Yeah," I said. "I'll stay." We didn't sleep together that night. Not in that way. We just lay in bed, fully clothed, under the covers, his arm across my chest and his head tucked into the crook of my shoulder. And, for the first time in a long time, I felt still. Not restless, not anxious, just still. When I woke up the next morning, Elias was already up. I found him in the kitchen, barefoot, hair sticking up in every direction, pouring coffee into mismatched mugs like he did this every weekend. He glanced over, grinned. "Morning, sleepy." I rubbed my eyes. "What time is it?" "Just past 9. "You're one of those people who functions before noon?" He handed me a mug. "Barely. But I figured if I made coffee, I'd look less like someone who accidentally invited a man to sleep over and now doesn't know what to do with him." I took the mug and smiled. "You know," you say, "invited, but I distinctly remember you saying, 'Stay,' like it was some kind of whispered dare." He leaned back against the counter. "You stayed." "I did. And then we were just quiet. Not awkward, quiet. Just the kind that settles when two people realize something's shifting and no one wants to jinx it by naming it out loud." After breakfast, toast, eggs, and a whole lot of butter, we ended up back on the couch, this time with our legs tangled. The show from last night was still playing in the background, but we weren't watching it. I was watching him. He had this habit of biting the inside of his cheek when he was thinking. His thumb would brush the corner of his mouth like he didn't realize he was doing it. And when he laughed, his whole body got into it. Shoulders, stomach, knees. Like laughter had to pass through all of him on the way out. Around noon, he got a text and winced. "Work?" He nodded. "Yeah. Bar shift starts in 30. You mind?" I stood. "No, not at all. You don't have to rush out. I should get some stuff done anyway." He walked me to the door. The sunlight caught the edge of his cheekbone, and he squinted as he looked at me. "So?" he said. "So?" "This was good," he said. I nodded. "Yeah. You want to do it again?" "You mean next week? Laundry night?" He raised an eyebrow. "I meant sooner." That caught me off guard in the best way. "Yeah," I said. "Sooner's good." He leaned in. Not a full kiss, just a press of lips against my cheek. Gentle, like punctuation on a sentence he hadn't said yet. Then I left. The next few days were full of texts, not nonstop. Not clingy, just steady. The guy who brings his lizard into the coffee shop came back. Guess what he ordered? Me. Something iced and full of lies? Pumpkin spice with almond milk. He calls it his, reptile fuel. I laughed out loud at that one. In the middle of a design review Zoom call, no less. We met up again that Friday. No laundry excuse this time. Just dinner at a noodle place he liked, followed by drinks at a rooftop bar that neither of us could afford, but went to anyway, for the view. The view was fine, but watching Elias talk about how he wanted to go back to school someday, that was better. He told me he dropped out of community college after one semester. Said he'd been too in his own head, too unsure of what he wanted. "I didn't have a plan," he said. "Still kinda don't." "I think most people just fake it," I said. He looked at me. "Are you faking it?" "Most days." He nodded, like that made sense to him. At the end of the night, we stood on the street outside the bar. Neither of us moved. "You want to come back?" he asked. "I do," I said. "But I probably shouldn't. I've got deadlines this weekend." He nodded, even if his face fell just a little. "I'll see you Monday?" I asked. "Laundry night?" "Laundry night." Monday came, and so did Elias. This time, we didn't even pretend we were there for laundry. He brought Thai takeout. I brought beer. We ate on the floor of his living room, watching clothes spin just a few feet away, pretending the fluorescent lights weren't horrible and the folding table wasn't sticky from someone's spilled soda. At some point, I reached out, brushed a bit of sauce off his cheek. He caught my wrist, held it, didn't let go. "You're kind of bad at this," he said. "At what?" "Playing it cool," I smirked. "Good." Because the truth was, I didn't want to play it cool anymore, and neither did he. It had been almost 2 months since that first night at the laundromat. Somewhere in the mix of laundry loads, folding table conversations, and slow kisses on rooftops, something had quietly slipped into place between us. There was no talk of labels, no declarations, just a kind of rhythm. He texted me before bed most nights. I sent him memes during the day when I was supposed to be working. On Thursdays, he'd bring me a croissant from the bakery down the street without asking. I learned he always turned his pillow sideways when he slept. He learned I couldn't fall asleep unless I had white noise playing. One night in early November, we went to a Halloween party together. He didn't want to go at first, said he hated crowds, hated trying to make small talk with people who grew facial hair for a costume and then never took it off. But I convinced him. I said we didn't have to stay long, just enough to be social, take a couple photos, maybe steal a few beers. I wore a skeleton onesie. He showed up in a baseball jersey that looked suspiciously like something he actually wore in high school. "You're not even trying," I said when he got to my place. He shrugged. "I'm going as someone who's socially over it." "You wear that every day," he grinned. "Exactly." We didn't last more than an hour at the party. Too many people. Too loud. Some guy dressed as a sexy Mothman kept hitting on Elias until I stepped in and said, "He's with me." It just slipped out. But Elias didn't flinch. He just looked at me, then back at the guy, and said, "Yeah, I am." When we got back to his place, he tossed his keys on the counter and said, "So, that was a thing." "Yeah," I said. "You okay?" "I am," he said, leaning against the fridge. "Weirdly okay." I crossed the room and stood in front of him. "You sure?" He nodded, then reached up and ran a hand through my hair. "I liked hearing you say it," he said. "That I'm with you." I swallowed. "Good." And then he kissed me. And that night, we didn't stop at kissing. It wasn't fast or messy. It wasn't some explosion of months of pent-up tension. It was slow, careful. Like we were both saying something in the way our hands moved and our bodies pressed together. He touched me like he knew what he was doing, but wasn't trying to prove anything. I kissed him like I'd wanted to for weeks, but was scared of what would happen after. When we were lying in bed afterward, tangled and quiet, he traced a line down my chest and said, "So what are we now?" I turned toward him. "What do you want us to be?" He didn't answer right away, just looked at me. Then, "I don't know. I just know I don't want to do any of this if you're not around." That sentence sat in my chest like a warm weight. "Okay," I said. "Then let's start there." The next morning was quiet. We didn't talk much. Just exchanged small looks, little touches. He made toast. I made coffee. When we sat down at his tiny kitchen table, his foot brushed mine under the table and stayed there. I asked, "You think people always know when it's turning into something?" He looked at me, a piece of toast halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this, us, whatever we're doing." He chewed slowly, then swallowed. "I don't think they know right away," he said. "I think they just wake up one day and realize it's not casual anymore." "Did you wake up with that feeling today?" He smiled. "Kinda." I nodded, heart thudding a little too loud in my chest. "Me too." We didn't say the word boyfriend. We didn't need to yet, but the word hung somewhere in the air, unspoken but understood. And maybe that was enough for now. A couple of weeks passed, and everything settled into a rhythm, comfortably, almost dangerously so. We'd stopped pretending we weren't spending the night at each other's places. My hoodie lived draped over the back of his couch now. His phone charger was permanently plugged in by my bed. He left little things without asking. Half a box of cereal, his favorite mug, a record he wanted me to listen to but never remembered to play. The laundromat nights became less about laundry and more about us. Sometimes we didn't even bring clothes. We'd just show up with snacks or beers and sit on top of the machines after hours, talking about whatever we couldn't fit into the rest of the week. One of those nights, it was cold enough for our breaths to fog up the glass. Elias leaned back, hoodie zipped halfway, legs stretched in front of him. He took a sip of his beer and looked at me like he was seeing something new. "What?" I asked. He shrugged. "Nothing. Just thinking." "About?" He stared at the spinning dryer for a second too long, then said, "About how this is probably the happiest I've felt in years, and it scares the hell out of me." That landed harder than he probably meant it to. "Yeah," I said. "Same." He looked over. "That's not bad, right? Being scared?" "I don't think so," I said. "I think it means we actually care." He nodded, then reached over and laced his fingers with mine. His hand was cold, but it didn't matter. We sat like that for a long time. The first fight happened the week before Thanksgiving. Nothing huge, just tense, real. I was behind on a project, snappy, stressed. Elias showed up at my place with takeout, trying to be thoughtful, and I barely looked up from my laptop. He hovered awkwardly by the door for a second. I got Ty. "I can't," I said. "Deadline. I'll just put it in the fridge." "Elias, seriously, I can't deal right now." That shut everything down. He left without saying much, and I let him, which made me feel like shit as soon as the door closed. I didn't text him that night, or the next morning. It wasn't until around 4 p.m. the following day that he messaged me. "Elias, you okay?" I stared at the screen for a minute, then typed, "Me. I'm sorry, I was an idiot." Elias, "You were stressed." Me. Still doesn't excuse it. A few minutes passed. Then Elias, "Can I come over tonight?" Me. "Please." He showed up later with the same takeout bag I'd ignored the night before. Same order. Still warm. I opened the door and didn't even speak, just wrapped my arms around him and pulled him in. He didn't let go for a while. After we ate, we lay on the couch in silence, his head on my chest, my hand resting on his back. "I'm not good at this," I said softly. "At what?" "Letting people in, knowing how to be consistent, present, whatever." He didn't answer right away, just ran his fingers slowly along my ribs. "I'm not asking you to be perfect," he said. "Just here. I'm trying," I whispered. "I know," he whispered back. That night, we fell asleep early. No movie, no distractions. Just limbs tangled and the sound of rain on the window. We spent Thanksgiving apart. He had family visiting, and I had dinner with a friend from work. But he texted me after dessert. "Elias, save me." My uncle just said, "Back in my day, men were men." Me, "Send him back to his day." Elias, "If I fake a stomachache, you'll pick me up." Me, "Already outside." He sent a photo of himself hiding in the bathroom with the caption, "Emergency exit plan in progress." We met up the next day instead. Leftovers. A stupid movie. He laid with his head in my lap while I ran my fingers through his hair, and neither of us said it out loud. But we both felt it. This was starting to feel like something you couldn't walk away from easily. Not without damage. December hit, and everything felt heavier, but not in a bad way. Just real. The kind of weight you feel when something starts mattering more than you thought it would. When seeing each other turns into memorizing how someone takes their coffee, or recognizing their footsteps in the hallway before they knock. One night after work, Elias called me. "Hey," he said, "you busy?" "Not really. Why? You mind if I come over?" "Of course not. You okay?" There was a pause. Then he said, "I just don't feel like being alone tonight." 10 minutes later, he was at my door. He didn't say anything when I let him in, just wrapped his arms around me and buried his face in my shoulder. I held him there for a long time. Eventually I asked, "What happened?" He didn't pull away, just said, "My mom called. She asked if I was seeing anyone." I tensed. "What'd you say?" "That I was," he said. "That it was a guy." "That it was you," I blinked. "You told her?" He nodded into my shirt. "I think she already knew. But still, saying it out loud was—" He trailed off. "Terrifying?" I offered. "Yeah." I stepped back and looked at him. "You didn't have to do that. Not for me." "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I did it because I didn't want to keep pretending." I reached up and touched his cheek. He leaned into it. "She said she needed time," he added. "Didn't hang up, didn't yell, just quiet." "That's something," I said. "Yeah." We sat on the couch that night and watched snow fall outside my window. Just flurries. Not enough to stick, but enough to turn the streetlight glow into something softer. Something like hope. I didn't ask him to stay, he just did. A week later, we were at a holiday party his friend was throwing. A warm, crowded apartment full of mismatched chairs and too much spiked cider. At one point, someone asked, "So how long have you two been together?" Elias froze, looked at me. I answered, "About 2 months." And he didn't correct me. He reached for my hand under the table instead. That night, walking back to his place, he said, "I liked that. You saying it like it was a fact." "It is a fact," I said. He didn't answer, just slid his hand into mine and held it all the way home. The next morning, he was making pancakes shirtless, humming to himself, flipping them like he'd done it 100 times. I leaned against the doorway and just watched him. He glanced over. "What?" "Nothing. Why are you looking at me like that?" I crossed the kitchen and kissed his shoulder. "I like this. You. Us." He set the spatula down and turned around. His voice was soft. "I do too. I think I might be falling in love with you." The words slipped out before I could stop them. His eyes widened. Just a little. Then he stepped closer and cupped the back of my neck. "You think?" he asked, teasing. I laughed, nervous. "Okay, fine. I know." He kissed me, slow and certain. When he pulled back, he said, "Good. Because I'm already there." And just like that, the air shifted. No more maybes. No more pretending we weren't falling hard. It was love now. And it was ours. We didn't have some big moment after that. No fireworks. No candlelit declarations. Just life, slowly folding around us like warm sheets, fresh out of the dryer. We started saying, "Love you," in casual ways. At the end of a call. Before heading out the door, mumbled half asleep in bed, with one of us already halfway under. Elias started leaving things at my place on purpose now. An extra toothbrush. Socks. A half-empty bottle of cologne he claimed was too strong, but I knew was just an excuse to keep part of him in my bathroom. I met his mom over video chat. It was awkward, quiet, but not unkind. She didn't say much, but she didn't look away from the screen either. And after the call, Elias just curled up next to me on the couch and let out a long breath. "I think that went okay," he said. I kissed the top of his head. She didn't explode. "That's a win." We laughed. Held each other, stayed like that for the rest of the night. A few weeks before the new year, he texted me, "Elias, I'm standing in front of the change machine. Guess what? Me. It 8 you're 5 again?" Elias, "Nope, I don't need it." Me. "Why?" Elias, "Because I'm not here for laundry." I laughed, thumb hovering over the screen. Then my doorbell rang. He was standing there with takeout, 2 beers, and that same half smile from the night we met. "You realize this all started because of quarters, right?" I said. He held up the takeout. "And now we've upgraded to dumplings." We sat on my floor that night, just like we used to at the laundromat, sharing bites, bumping knees, talking about everything and nothing. I used to think love had to be this dramatic thing, I said at one point. Huge gestures, big speeches. And now? He asked, mouthful of rice. Now I think it's just this. He nodded. Same. A pause. Then, you think we're gonna mess this up? I looked at him, at the way his hair fell over his forehead, the way he always ate around the edges of a dumpling before the center. We might, I said. But if we do, we'll fix it, he smiled. That's good enough for me. New Year's Eve came fast. We didn't go out. We didn't get dressed up. We made pasta in my kitchen, burned the garlic, danced to stupid music, and kissed at midnight with confetti from a dollar store popper stuck in our hair. And in that moment, with him holding me like we were the only two people left in the world, I realized I wasn't waiting anymore, not for the right time, or the perfect moment, or for someone to read my mind. I'd already found what I was looking for, and it had started with quarters.